Hello, my name is Taylor. I'm a financial coach. I help my clients create cash flow systems so that they can save more money, spend more money in alignment with their values, and pay off debt. So I help my clients mostly inside Monarch Money. When I first started financial coaching, I was doing spreadsheets, and I love spreadsheets. I'm a huge spreadsheet nerd. But I found that when my clients stopped working with me, they stopped using the spreadsheet, and I didn't love that. I wanted this to be a more sustainable, lasting change that they make when they work with me, regardless if they continue to work with me. And so I moved on to a budgeting app, and I picked Monarch Money. I picked Monarch Money not only for my clients, but also for myself. I've been using it for over a year now personally, helping a lot of households get set up in Monarch Money. So with that being said, I love YNAB. I absolutely love YNAB, and I actually think it's the superior budgeting app. But I don't pick YNAB, and so I did want to go through why I do that, what the pros and cons are. That it may be a little controversial, but what the reason why I pick Monarch with my clients is mostly because it is more user friendly to start. So YNAB has a very high learning curve. And so the people who love YNAB, like really love it. It is a cult following. If you either love it or you hate it, there's almost no in between. And so it is hard to convince someone to love YNAB while also convincing them to change their spending habits. We're changing their goals. We're adopting all kinds of different personal, financial, philosophical ways of thinking. So there's just too many changes all at once normally when you start with financial coaching. So I wanted to go through these pros and cons, but to start, I did want to talk about pricing. So they are about the same price. So the yearly amount is $9.99 a year. This one is just 99 cents off. So about $100 a year, $15 a month. Both have a 30-day free trial. This one says 7, but you can get a 30-day free trial by clicking on this and using this code. You also get 50% off your first year, or you can use my link down below to get a 30-day free trial. But I do recommend using this as it's up, because my link does not get you 50% off your first year. So don't use my link, use that link until it's not there anymore. Then go ahead and use my link to get that 30-day free trial. So I've used YNAB myself for several years while I was in college. I was studying for personal financial planning. That was my degree. And I was using YNAB. I was helping other people get YNAB set up. It was my favorite app at the time. And honestly, it still is in a lot of ways. And so I just want to show you the layout and what to expect when you first get into both of these apps. Because there's a very clear winner as far as aesthetics go. This is why Monarch is bringing in so many different clients, because it is just prettier. There's a lot more data. There's a lot more in your dashboards. There's a lot more that you can see and get as far as reports go. There's this recurring calendar that you have here. And then there's YNAB. And you can immediately see that it does not look nearly as pretty. It kind of looks like a spreadsheet. Actually, this can look really overwhelming for a lot of people. Again, it's a reason why YNAB has a superior amount of resources to learn this app. There's hours and hours of tutorials and videos, not only just provided by YNAB and their team, but also by influencers and, people on YouTube like me, or all these things. Because there is so much to learn when it comes to YNAB and how to use it. It can be overwhelming. You are investing several hours just to get set up. The first month is the hardest. After that, it's a little bit easier to maintain. That is not necessarily the case with Monarch. There's a lot of things that are still hard about Monarch. There's a lot that you have to learn. That's why, people watch my channels to learn all these things that are a little tricky about Monarch. There is a learning curve to it. It's just not, I don't think, nearly as high for YNAB. Some people will disagree with me there. But you can see that there is not nearly the same amount of visuals. I mean, you do have a spending chart as far as, what you can see from your spending. This is obviously very limited data because this is just my little demo account here that I'm showing you. We do have a net worth chart here, but I don't recommend putting your investment accounts and your home value and like your car values in here, because one, I don't even think you can. Maybe you can. But YNAB is a budgeting app. It is purely used use for cash flow. And that is why it's honestly superior budgeting app, because that is what all it's designed to do. It is specialized in making sure you budget correctly, not necessarily to track net worth. It can track your liquid net worth or your available cash flow, but not nearly as comprehensive as Monarch, where you can see all your investments, your home, your real estate, your loans, the vehicles, all in one place to watch that net worth grow. You also have an income expense report. So your cash flow report, again, very spreadsheet-like, not nearly as pretty functional as the cash flow reports that you can get in Monarch. And the reporting feature is also just going to be superior. You can do it by day. You can filter out these categories here. Filter out by accounts, tags, all kinds of things. So just the reporting is going to be superior in this app. But it's still available in YNAB. It's still very useful reports to see what your total net income is. As far as how to use YNAB, it is going to be very similar. Your budget is going to be very similar to your Monarch budget. And I'll show you the similarities here. So you can see here, and I'm going to just make this bigger, you have these three columns here. You have assigned, activity, and what is available. Same thing with Monarch. You have those three columns, budget, actual, remaining, exact same columns. You also have the groupings. You can change the the categories. You can change the emoji. You can change where these accounts sit, the categories, where they sit, where they live as far as groups go. You can be totally customized with the groups. Same thing here, completely customizable. It can be anything you want. So both are winning in that regard. YNAB also has emojis now. I didn't even know they did that actually. So you have this, you can make your categories very customized. Now, the thing with YNAB, the key difference is that YNAB is built on what is actually available in your accounts. If the money is not in your account, you cannot budget it. You cannot assign it anything. So it's the same concept as Monarch. If you assume that you're going to make $8,000 in the month, you have to assign that entire $8,000 to the rest of your expenses. And you're trying to get this number down to zero because it's telling you of your $8,000 that you expect to bring in, you have not assigned and given a job $2,256. It's that same concept of zero-based budgeting. However, you'll notice that you do this on a month-to-month basis, regardless of when the paycheck comes in. So I don't care if you get paid bi-weekly, monthly, at the end of the month, beginning of the month, you're still going to create a budget based on your monthly expenses, regardless of when your paycheck comes in, because Monarch is not designed to show you what is actually available in your account. In fact, you could budget $15,000 this month, and you could assign all of that here, but that does not necessarily mean you have the money available in these pockets to spend. YNAB is different. YNAB is a very active budgeting process. It only lets you sign what you actually have in the account. And so let's say my paycheck hits today. So for example, I'm going to say my paycheck hit today. And so I have this amount that is ready to assign. And there you go. This is now ready to assign. If my paycheck did not hit, this would not be available to assign. So it is paycheck by paycheck basis. As soon as the income comes in the account, then you can start assigning funds. And I just want to show you an example of that. If my paycheck did not hit until tomorrow, let's say I'm getting paid bi-weekly. And so I got paid in March. I'm going to just make this a future transaction. And of course, you can connect your bank accounts. This can all be automatic. I don't recommend you do this manually. You can do that if you want, but I don't. So if I went to my budget now in April, I have no money to assign. So I don't have enough for rent unless I did not assign all my funds from March. So if I got paid in March, I have to be careful to not assign all of my funds. Because if I got paid, 2 weeks ago in March, I can't just assign everything in March to this entire $1,700, or else I wouldn't have enough money available for rent. So again, it is very hands-on. You have to be inside this constantly to be budgeting, making sure that these numbers are correct as far as what is going to, roll over from last month, if that works, because, the rollovers are normal and forced in YNAB, where in Monarch, that rollover capability is something you can turn on. You can turn on this ability to let the funds roll over if you don't use it. You can also not have that on. and have a more passive approach, meaning if you overspent, it's fine, move on. Or if you underspent, you're not going to try to do anything with it. You're not trying to assign the money to go to some other category, which is something you can do here. If you overspend, you can always move the money to another category, just like Monarch. You can do the same thing. I didn't spend it here, so I'm going to move it to something else. So it's very flexible month to month. But YNAB also forces you to stay within budget, which is why I love YNAB. If you are committed to your YNAB, if you're committed to your budget and you're not going to allow yourself to overspend more than you're planning, YNAB is awesome because it will break it. I mean, it just doesn't work very well. It's not going to break. But if you overspent on all these categories next month, when you get your paycheck in there, it's going to say, hey, you can't assign any of your paycheck because you used all your paycheck last month. And there's some workarounds for that, and it's not quite that simple, but it really does force you to not, if you are paying attention to your budget, force you to stay within the parameters you have set, or else you will not be able to assign money to savings. You can't put money towards a credit card. It really does force you to not go into debt. And I love that about the app. And that is why it is a superior budgeting app, because that is what budgeting should do. However, I also feel like budgeting should not be such an intense process. I also feel like it is okay to jump into a budgeting app once a month to check on how cash flow is doing, see where things are at, especially if you've been really in tune with your expenses and you're pretty good about budgeting or staying within your means. I think that YNAB is a little bit of a hassle because you have to come in here every single paycheck. You can't let a paycheck go. If you miss like a couple months, hey, it's a busy month, you're busy running your business, you're doing all this other things, running your family, whatever. You come back in, May or June to say, hey, how have things been? It's been, I haven't been caught up. I got to get caught up in my budget. You have to go all the way back to the last time you budgeted to go make sure all your categories are correct. These are pretty automatic as far as categories go, but they're not as intuitive, or you can't also set up rules like you can in Monarch, but you have to go through all your categories since the last time you budgeted and assign every single dollar a job before you can even see where you're at for the current month. And so if you do not actively budget, which again is a huge, awesome feature that it's like forcing you to do it, but if you know you're not that person, if you need a more passive approach to budgeting, this app is not going to be for you. With Monarch, you are setting up a budget, a one and done budget for the month. You're not doing it by paycheck. You are doing it by what you expect month to month income. If you miss a month and you don't have these rollover features turned on, that's the caveat. If you have the rollover features turned on, you have to at least reconcile monthly. And I have a video about that if you want to do that. But if you don't have the rollovers turned on, you could leave this alone and only just look at your cash flow. You could just say, hey, the last few months I've been doing really good on my savings rate, and I'm good to go. I can see where all my expenses have been. And I can move on and start maybe fresh in that month. You can't do that with YNAB, which again is awesome, but still a huge pain in the butt for someone who just wants to see what is cash flow doing. Now, the cool thing that I do love also about YNAB is the ability to set these parameters of what you would like to fund these categories. So in April, I can see when everything is due because I can set a due date. I can edit the target to be, weekly, monthly, or yearly. So if I need $100 a week for groceries, I can do that. I can set a due date for it. If I need something, a subscription, if I yearly a subscription, it's going to actually calculate based on today's date or today's month. You need that money in 3 months, so it's going to calculate how much you need to save in 3 months. Whereas in Monarch, if you're trying to do the same thing with like yearly expenses or sinking funds, let's say you need to pay your property taxes in 2 months. In YNAB, it's going to tell you immediately, hey, you need to set $1,000 aside to make sure that you pay that in 2 months. But in Monarch, you have to figure that out for yourself, right? You have to say, I need to be putting aside some X amount of money for property taxes, and you have to do the math by yourself, which can be hard if you have a ton of different annual subscriptions, where in this one you could put every single annual subscription you have, set the due date when it's due, and Monarch will calculate how much you need to fund that. So you could put it off for a few months and the funding is going to get more extreme, right? If you put it off until the last 2 months, obviously you need to fund it way more than you would have if you funded it the entire year. So that's another pro for YNAB is the customization of how to set targets for your budget is awesome. The con about this is that you could set targets all day long, but it does not tell you that your targets are out of your expected monthly income. With Monarch, you have to decide what your monthly income is going to be and then assign everything. With YNAB, I could assign all day long. I could assign $1,000 to clothing, $1,000 to my emergency fund, and YNAB is not going to tell me, hey, you're probably not, you're going to go over budget because we're not expecting you to make that much, because you can't assign it until it hits the account. And so it's not as easy to see if you are setting parameters outside of your means. Another feature that I really like about YNAB is that they do have the ability to have multiple budgets. So if you have a business that you want to also be budgeting for, if you have like a kid that you're trying to budget for, you can set up multiple budgets. They are completely separate. You can set up different accounts for each of these budgets. So you can have one budget with all your business accounts and one budget for your personal accounts, and all in one login. You can also share the household with another person. They can have their own login, and you can invite them to join your budget. So those are awesome features. Monarch, not quite the same. You can have the two people have the same login to join the budget, the different logins for the same budget. You can add them as a household member, just right here. Add as many people are, actually, I don't know if there's a limit. Add people to your budget, and you can go from there, but you cannot have two separate budgets. You'd have to have a completely different account with a different login to have a business budget and a personal budget, which is what I do personally, but that can be a pain for other people. And so that is a huge plus, is that you can have two budgets in one in YNAB. So who is YNAB for? YNAB is for anyone who is very diligent about budgeting. They enjoy the budgeting process. They enjoy trying to assign dollars to the categories that they need. They enjoy the sinking funds process. If you like sinking funds, you're going to love YNAB for that reason. It is also for you if you are really trying to discipline yourself, trying to get out of credit card debt. You're trying to, and if you're actively using those credit cards and trying to get out of credit card debt, YNAB is actually going to be a lot easier for you to manage than Monarch, because Monarch doesn't really handle that concept very well. Using credit cards and paying them off. When clients sign up with Monarch, we set a commitment to not use the cards anymore because Monarch just cannot handle it. And it's also just a better way to do it financially. If you're trying to pay off debt, stop using the card. The points are not worth what you are paying in interest. So just get it paid off, and then you can start using it again to accrue points. But I digress. So YNAB is also for people who really need to see that their bank account balance matches their budget. If that is very important to you, if you've been doing that in your spreadsheets, or if that is something that you're like, how could you, if that's like a concept of like, how could you not do it that way? Use YNAB. For some people, that's not really an issue. Most of my clients, we do have a goal of getting ahead of income. So at least a month ahead. That's like a primary goal for most of my clients, or they've already been there, they have a month ahead, and it makes Monarch a lot easier because, like I said, you can set your goal. If you think you have $8,000 in the month, this doesn't, you're setting a budget, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have $8,000 in the account yet, because your paychecks only hit for half. It does not have any reflection of what's actually available in your account, and so that can be really, really hard for people conceptually. And so if that's the case for you, YNAB might be a better choice for you. If you want a more passive approach to budgeting, if you want to be able to have flexibility in how often you're budgeting, if you would rather see trends in your budget, this is something that Monarch does in the most superior way. For example, if I wanted to see what's actually going on with groceries, it's very easy for me to get an average of what's going on in the last few months. So you can call yourself out, I can call my clients out and say, hey, we set a budget for this, but you've clearly been overspending, or maybe, hey, you've been really underspending here. I think we can assign these dollars somewhere to go to something else. Either way, you can get data on where spending has actually been, and so that you can have great conversations with your partner and say, hey, this is the trend that's been happening. What can we do about it? You can't really get a lot of trend data from YNAB. I mean, you can get the average spend here, but it doesn't give you a lot of details. With Monarch, I can click on groceries and see where the trend is, every single transaction for that category here listed, so we can verify, make sure this is all correct. We can do this on a monthly and a quarterly and a yearly basis to see where things have been. I was just looking at with my clients, like, hey, how does groceries shopping change for you in the year with the holidays or when family comes? You can clearly see when those spikes happen for you. Same with the reporting feature. I mean, just the ability to see what you're actually spending on certain lifestyle expenses. Maybe you just want to see how much you've been spending on your kids. You can do that. in Monarch, not so much in YNAB. You can't really get trends very well. Of course, you do have those reports for now, income expenses, but it's hard to get real data from it. It's hard to like call yourself out and say, hey, I've set this budget here, but I'm overspending. Like, this isn't actually going to work. This budget, while it's like a really nice idea, it doesn't mean that I actually have the money to bring that in. It also, the Monarch is also better at just being able to forecast expenses. So if you get paid, let's say you get paid on a quarterly basis, you can go in here to the forecast feature and actually assign dollars based on what your income is for when you get your bonus. So yeah, let's say my bonus is going to end up making my income to be $20,000 a month. I can go ahead and assign that $20,000 to my budget, all in these columns, so that I can have everything assigned and no surplus. You want no surplus left to budget, because then you've given every dollar a job. In YNAB, you can't budget those funds until they've hit your account. So that's fine, because that is making it more realistic as far as your budget goes. It's really tying into what is actually available in your account. It doesn't let you spend what is not in your account, but that can also be frustrating. So both are great apps. I love both of them. I choose Monarch because it is less of a hassle, less of a system to adopt. My clients are normally signing up. They haven't budgeted in the past. This is a new concept for them. We're just trying to get everything in order. But as I've talked about so many times, if you are jumping between apps, if you cannot decide on an app, none of these apps are working for you. It may not be the app. It may be your budget. A budget is there to facilitate a good, an app is there to facilitate a good budget. If you do not have a good budget, the app will not help you. And what a budget is planning all of your expenses, not just for the month, but for a year. You have to plan everything that could be coming up cash flow wise, all the goals that you have, all the big trips that you have. We have to consider all of these things in order to have a clear-cut budget. And if you don't have that, then putting it in an app is not really going to help you. So regardless of what direction you're going to go, you need a good budget. So if you need help creating that, let me know. I'd love to help you. You can get signed up for one-on-one coaching and we can create that for you. I'll also be doing videos on that in the future of how to create a good budget before you pick an app that is going to be worth your time. And not every app is perfect. There's oftentimes I'll get clients set up in Monarch and we'll realize that Monarch just isn't the right fit for them, and we'll move them to YNAB or some other budget. And that's fine. I do want to go with a budget that the way your brain works. The philosophy that you have around budgeting and spending is going to be different than the next person's, and so picking the right app for you is an ongoing process. Don't get discouraged if you picked one and you're like, hey, this actually sucks, and try to move on. Just make sure you know the root cause of what's actually happening and why it's not working for you. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you have any other requests as far as comparison videos for other apps, I'd love to do them. Let me know which ones that you're trying to debate on. If you want me to do more in-depth videos on YNAB, also let me know. I'd love to do that for you. So thank you so much.